Hey there, friend. Welcome to the Having a Mom Moment podcast. I am your host, Shannon Warner. This podcast is all about taking a few moments for yourself and reconnecting to the amazing woman behind the title of mom. You have so many plates spinning at any given time between your kids, your partner, your job, maintaining a household, etc., etc. But where does taking time just for you play into that? Let's spend some time together, you and me, right now. We're rebranding a mom moment to those sacred moments you take to fill your cup first. Let's connect, tune in, and tap into what makes us the incredible women that we are. We'll nurture ourselves first so we can be our best selves for those we pour into on a daily basis. We'll also bask in the beautiful wisdom of other moms to learn about the ways in which they've tapped into alignment in their own motherhood journeys. Come on, mama, it's your time. We're having a mom moment. Hello, my friends. Welcome to another double episode week. I could not resist the opportunity to come back with another episode this week because I wanted to share a snippet of the 2024 Tune In and Tune Up workshop that began on Monday of this week, February 5th. And I'm sharing it for two reasons. One, it was a fantastic session and I've gotten really beautiful feedback and I wanted to share it with all of you. And two, if you enjoy what you're about to hear, it's not too late to join us before week 2 begins on Monday the 12th. And when you join, you'll still get everything that everyone else has already gotten in addition to the replay. So you can go back and listen to the whole thing. This is about half of the session, but it was so good that I did want to share. Now, I do want to mention there is meditation and visualization exercises inside this episode. I do not recommend that if you are driving that you partake in these. We certainly do not want to close our eyes as directed when we are behind the wheel. So you can either keep your eyes open and listen, or you can pause and do this at home. I think this would be a great episode to listen to when you have some downtime because it does involve some journaling in addition to meditating and visualizing. And because I love you all so much, I'm also including the Wheel of Life worksheet that we used this week for free. It is available through the link in my show notes so that you can download it and follow along with that part of the exercise. If you have any questions about the 2024 Tune In and Tune Up workshop, please send me an email over at havingamaMoment@gmail.com. The cart will close on this offer in the next week, so don't wait too long if you've enjoyed this and think that this is something you want to be a part of, and we would love to have you. It's been such a beautiful experience so far. We would absolutely love to include you in the next 3 weeks. Lastly, I do want to point out that the sound quality does vary from our typical podcast episodes that you hear because it was a live session. We had unmuted guests sharing their thoughts, and as a result, some background noise was picked up, and I also had to detach the music that I used for the meditation from the actual voice part of the meditation because I do not own rights to that music. So therefore I could not publish it here. So if the sound during the meditation seems a little wonky to you, that is because it is. It sounds much better with a music backing to it. So anyway, I hope you enjoy it. It was such an amazing session. I really think there was some great reflection in this session, and I'm really looking forward to the next 3 weeks. So again, if it feels aligned for you, we would love to have you. All of the details are in the show notes, and if the timing doesn't work for you to show up live, you will get recordings to every single session uploaded into the portal within 24 hours. So without further ado, I hope you love this abridged version of our first session of the 2024 Tune In and Tune Up workshop. And This will be the only session that I am sharing on the podcast. So if you want to know more, you've got to come join us. So thank you so much for coming as we enter into 2024. Any of you who know me or have been following me on the socials, like in January, it did not feel like the time this year to hit the ground running with these new year resolutions and these goals. And I'm going to do the things, and I'm going to be at the gym at 5 a.m. and all of that stuff. And I've heard from other people as well that there was a similar vibe going on. So if you have felt that way too, you're not alone. And we need to realize too, like, what do we do in winter in nature? We hibernate. We look dead on the outside. We hibernate. We come inward. So we're on the other end of that long, dark season. So we can start to kind of come out of the shell, come out of the cave, come out of the cocoon or whatever, the chrysalis, come out of your chrysalis a little bit and start to think about what you want for 2024. And if you have zero goals, that's okay. I've gotten that feedback as well, where people are like, I don't know what I want. I don't have any goals. That's okay. Because we can start to think about how we want the year to feel and tap into that to lead us to maybe where we want to end up at the end of the year. And also you get to change your mind, which is a lot of fun. We have the power. So again, the next 4 weeks, we're going to really be heavy on the self-love. We're going to be really heavy on stepping back into the reality that we are not at the mercy of our lives. I think sometimes in life, things happen, and not only do we take the hands off the wheel, but we crawl into the back seat and hide on the floorboard. And I say that as someone who's done that myself, where I'm just like, I don't know, like we're past Jesus, take the wheel. I'm like, let me climb in the trunk and like punch out the tail light and like wave at the car behind me for help, because I don't know what's happening. I don't know where I am, and I'm scared. I hope it's dark. So we're going to climb back into the front seat, get out of the trunk, climb back into the front seat, and we're going to put the hands back on the wheel, because we get to choose. We have a choice. And a lot of times we forget that we have a choice when life gets lifey, when we have bills and children and work responsibilities and all of the things. Like, I understand there's a lot of things happening to us, okay? Ultimately, just take what resonates, leave the rest. You get to decide for you what feels good coming out of this. And if you're like, I hate all of it, like, that's okay too. Just leave it here. But I encourage you, if you hear something that you're thinking, oh, I already know that. I know that, Shannon. Just listen anyway, because maybe hearing it from someone else in a different way, from a different perspective, might unlock something for you. So just be open to whatever message you may receive. All right. So we're going to take some breaths together. You're welcome to close your eyes if you want to. Do whatever you need to do to get comfortable. Put your hands on your chest, or if you prefer on your belly, whatever feels good for you. If you want to close your eyes, you are welcome to do that. We're going to take some breaths together to come back into our bodies, because we spend so much time out there, outside of our bodies, handling all the things, care of everybody else's needs, trying to manage expectations of others and their feelings and their moods. So it's time to come right back here. Okay. Oh, hands wherever it feels good. Close your eyes. We're going to take some deep breaths. And just remember, if your heart is still beating, there is a reason. You are here for a reason. I'm going to try a 4-7-8 breath. And what it does is it activates your parasympathetic system to help take you out of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all of the F things. Take it out of that response and put your body into rest and digest mode. So what we'll do is inhale for 4. We're going to hold that breath for 7. And then we're going to exhale out our mouths for a full count of 8. And we're going to try to use that full exhale. Okay, so I'll count it for you the first time. Here we go. Inhale for 4. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. Let's do that again. Ready? Inhale for 4. Hold for 7. Exhale for 8. Use the whole 8 count. Do that one more time. In for 4. Hold. Out for 8. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Empty it all out. Breathe however feels comfortable for you right now. And take a moment and ask yourself what you came here to hear. Listen and see if anything comes up for you. If nothing comes up for you, that's okay too. Couple more breaths. Something that another version of you wants you to know. Ready? You can open your eyes. Beautiful. Okay. If there's anything that comes up for you at any point, sometimes for me, when I do those, I'm like, oh, I heard something. I'm going to make a note of that. And even if you're like, I don't know what that means, write it down anyway. For example, I had an experience a couple weeks ago where I kept having trust come up for me. I kept hearing trust, and I'm like, okay, I trust. I trust in the universe, or God, source, whatever you want to call it. I trust, I trust, but the message kept coming through every time I sat down to listen, and I couldn't figure out what it was until I had an interaction with my mom, and you like came out like hitting me in the face. You. And she pointed it out to me, and it was like, oh, I trust everything else, but do I trust myself? So it was a reminder to trust me. So if you got something where you're like, I'm not really sure what that means right now, just make a note of it, let it be. You don't have to attach any meaning to it. And then just see if it kind of unfolds in any kind of way for you throughout this week. Okay, so we'll get started with this week. We need to check in with where we're at right now so we can determine where we want to go. So if you're getting ready to take a trip, Google Maps. I'm an Android user, so I'm going to make a Google Maps reference. You Apple haters can deal with it. I'm looking at you, Michelle. I've used your Apple Maps before. It's not friendly. If you are trying to go to beautiful Savannah, Georgia, Google needs to know where you are first, right? We have to know where we are to know where we're going to go. So we're going to check in with ourselves today. We're going to reflect on the last year. And I want you to offer yourself so much grace and so much kindness in case there are things that come up where you're thinking 2023 was not my best. That's okay. But we're going to start by tuning in to really what was there for us in 2023 and where we want to go from here. So if you had the chance to grab that handout, fantastic. If not, also okay. Has anyone seen one of these before? No? Okay. Some people have, some people haven't. Nobody here seems to have, and that's cool because then you'll be open to the magic that it can supply you. If you don't have a paper, you can just write down the categories. So if you have this, or at the top of your paper, write today's date, which is the 5th of February. And I want you to go through each of these areas and rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. No judgment. We're just looking at the different areas and going, okay, how do I feel about this? And it's whatever meaning you attach to that category. So relationships, if you're married, it might look one way, or if you want to think about the whole thing, how is my romantic relationships, my platonic relationships, my my relationships with my community, whatever, however you want to unpack it is fine. But go ahead and take a minute and do that, and I will do the same, and then we'll dive into it a little bit. So again, if you don't have the sheet, you can just write down the categories and rate them, put the number next to it. We've got personal growth, health, physical environment, relationships, fun and leisure, spirituality. And again, that can be whatever that means for you personally. Career, finances, and personal growth. So there's 8 total. And what I like to do is I like to do this and then revisit it a couple times throughout the year. And it's fun when you forget about it and then you pull it back out and you're like, oh, that was really not going well. I know it's going better, but we have to have a baseline. At this point, we had a really beautiful conversation of the different areas in our lives, the highs and the lows, and I'm going to leave that out of this episode to protect the privacy of our workshop members. But it was a really fantastic conversation, and I'm going to include some of the snippets here that I think are extra juicy, that are in response to some of the things that our members shared. So those feel good, right? We feel good talking about those. And I like, Mary, how you said, you're like, oh, I tend to do more of those things because they feel good, right? So let's look at our lower areas, and no shame, no judgment. We're going to just meet them with grace and love. They're just pieces of us. They're not the whole shebang. They're not the whole puzzle. So it's all information though, right? It's data, it's feedback. Yeah, we can use it to inform decisions going forward. So we need to be kind to ourselves. Nothing is a mistake, but there's so many people that your work wives, your work besties, whatever, that you meet in your environments that maybe would not have been drawn to you into your realm if you hadn't worked with them. Exactly. It is neutral until we apply meaning to it and like put weight on it, and we don't have to. If you filled in ones all the way around, like, okay, great. Started from the bottom. There's nowhere to go but up. Like, we can't go into negative, and that's okay. But if you've got an area where you're like, oh, I'd like to make some changes, what would that area be for you? So when you're looking at the areas that you want to make some adjustments in, I want to remind you that small steps are still progress. You don't have to completely revolutionize what you're doing in one area. I can tell you something that worked for me with career. In all honesty, worked a job that I did not like. I liked some of my coworkers. I did not like anything else about it. But what I was able to do in that space was try to reframe what the job was good for. So if we're looking at career, like, I wasn't where I thought or wanted to be, but I made myself a little post-it note and I reminded myself of all the reasons why I did not hate every single moment at my job. And they included the fact that I got to work remotely, which was lovely and wonderful. The fact that I had the flexibility that I needed with young children, lovely and wonderful. I worked with people I enjoyed, lovely and wonderful. And I made myself a list and I slapped it here on my computer. So when I had a moment of like, I had something to remind me to kind of pull me out and recenter me. I'm like, okay, and when you focus on some of those higher vibrational thoughts, it's a little easier to get through some of these funky areas. So that's one thing you could do, is look at how that area is serving you right now. If there's anything that you're like, okay, it's not where I want it to be, but it's okay because it serves me in these ways. Or let's say you're like, oh, personal growth. Okay, I would like to improve in that area. What's a small step? Like, what is like the smallest thing you could do in that step, in that area? We don't have to make these big grand adjustments. Maybe you find a podcast that you like. This is not a plug for mine. Maybe you find a podcast that you like. You find somebody that's really inspiring to you. And then when you're vacuuming, you plug it in your earbud and you listen to it. Or if you still have it, if you have a commute, you listen to it. Or maybe you make a big step. Maybe you get a coach. Maybe you need to work through some stuff and you find a therapist. We love a girl in therapy. There's nothing wrong with therapy. Okay. So are there small steps that you could take in those arenas, or the ones that you want to focus on? And I would just choose one or two, just one or two. And what you may notice if you check in with yourself in 3 months is that if you start to raise the bar a little bit, the other bars will also grow with it. So just something to think about. So over the next week, observe how you're feeling about the thing. Don't attach any weight to the feelings. Don't give yourself any crap over those feelings. And then think about what little adjustments you can make. Or if you're like, you know what? I hate my house. We're going to save money and we're going to renovate the kitchen. Like, that's a big step, but that's something that you could work towards in small steps. Hey, I just saved another $100 towards that. Hey, I can buy new hardware for my cabinets, whatever the thing is. So think about that as we go through this week, as we go through this month, these areas that are low, be kind to yourself and just think about where you can make some little shifts. That's exactly what it's all about. Is that we don't have to do these huge reverse engineered 12-step plans to be like the most empowered and the most enlightened and the most fit and the most whatever. That's not sustainable, especially we're all mothers, like we're still mothers. We've got other people that we're worried about and other things that are taking our attention. Next, I want you to take about a minute and I want you to write down everything that went wrong in 2023. Everything, all of it. Write down everything that went wrong. It might feel yucky. It's okay. There's a method to my madness, I promise. But it is important to acknowledge it, honor it as part of our experience. So as you're wrapping up your list, this is my favorite saying that I learned. Pluck what you learned, then let it burn. Pluck what you learned and let it burn. Some crappy things may have happened, but were there lessons in those? Or if you're like, no, it was all terrible, there's no lessons. That's okay. That's okay. I got my behind laid off in 2023. I learned so much. I felt a ton of shame. I felt a ton of guilt. I was embarrassed until I realized none of that was mine to hold. I didn't do anything wrong. It was a numbers game and I got let go. And I'm letting it go. We don't have to carry these things around and attach meaning to them that aren't actually true. So if there's anything in that list where you can go, okay, well, this sucked, but I learned this about myself, or I learned this about this person, or I learned this about this area. We're going to pluck those lessons and we're going to just let the rest go. And that's the beauty of this, is that we can set it down. I know we're in February, but we can leave it in 2023. We don't have to bring it forward. I think we sometimes fill up these backpacks and it's like your JanSport from, I graduated in 2004. Okay, so I'm going to say it's your JanSport from 2004 and it's beat up and the zipper doesn't work half the time and it's dirty and it's gross and it's falling apart because, we still have textbooks and you're packing it full of shit. You're packing it full of stuff that you don't need to carry with you anymore. And then we just get in the habit of carrying it around. We're like, this is who I am. This is my backpack filled with all this stuff. You see this beat up textbook from 1985? Just part of who I am. We don't have to do that. And I think we know that. I think a lot of us do know that, but we don't give ourselves the permission to actually take the backpack off and set it down. So what can you set down and just leave behind? It doesn't have to be part of your identity. You don't have to put it on like a hat and wear it for the rest of your life. What can you set down? And just leave it. Just leave it. You get the choice, but you have to choose. Okay. So now let's look at everything that went right in 2023. So take another minute, everything, no matter how small the win, everything that went right in 2023. And let's write those things down. What did you love about the year? What are you so thankful and appreciative for 2023? It can be the smallest thing. I hope your list is long and you need more than 30 seconds, but if you can give us the highlight reel, that would be great. And if your highlight reel is, I didn't lose my crap, I held it together through a lot of crappy things. Amazing. I love that. That's a win. Or I only lost my crap once. Normally I'd lose my crap 5 times, but I only lost it once. That's a huge win. And while you're thinking about your wins, I want you to think if there's any connections between the not so good and the good. So because this happened over here on the not so good side, it actually gave me this over here. So any connections that we can draw between the two, we want to celebrate that too. I will say, I started a podcast that was not on my bingo card for 2023. And I get to have the most amazing conversations with women that I would have never had the opportunity to meet otherwise. The last couple episodes were with a woman from New Zealand. I would have how would I have ever met her, you know? And she's so beautiful and such an incredible human. And some of these people have become my friends. So like, thank you for that because I wouldn't have had the space for that or the energy had I continued in a job that was not serving me. And just because your win doesn't look like somebody else's doesn't mean it's not still a win. But make sure you celebrate yourself. Take a moment, give yourself a pat on the back afterwards and be like, I did that. Like, that's amazing. I did that. Even if it's just I held it together coming off of a global pandemic when life has been really scary and, you know, things have been unsure and I held it together. And my family, we came out in one piece. Amazing. That's a win. That's a win. So don't forget to celebrate yourselves, even on these littlest, what we call little things. Take just a moment and we'll dig into this a lot over the next 4 weeks because it's really the basis of like the stories that we tell ourselves and what we carry around and how we stop ourselves from going after the things that we want to go after. But were there any stories that held you back in 2023? Any stories? You can just take a minute to think about it. Anything that held you back. So I will start. I was carrying around a big case of I'm not enoughness, and it didn't matter what it was. I was like, I'm not smart enough. I am not well connected enough. I am not, whatever you name it. I could put that hat on, my not enoughness. But I know if I talk to any of my people, they tell me that's a load of shit, right? You can't read your own label from inside the bottle. And that's why we don't see it. What stories were you telling yourself that stopped you from growing or pursuing or dreaming or whatever? What stories have been holding you back? I just want you to think, just kind of plant that seed and let that ruminate over the next week or so. See how that feels. Because the problem is that we often are on autopilot throughout the day, right? We got to do the things. We're getting through our to-do list. We're getting through our routine. I get up, I get myself ready, I get out the door, or I get children ready and I get out the door, and then I do all of the other things expected of me. And you're just going, and doing what you've always done, but you go unconscious and you're not checking the thoughts that you're telling yourself and that you're feeding yourself. And I have bad news. If you think the same thought long enough, you're going to turn it into a belief and believe that it is your truth. So we'll dig into that more, but I want you just to consider over the next week, especially like what stories are you telling yourself, or have you been telling yourself that you're ready to set down? So for me, my I'm not enoughness, I'm not smart enough. Okay, I'm going to flip that on its head. I may not be smart enough when it comes to this new thing that I'm learning for the first time, but I know I'm resourceful. And I know that if I can't figure it out, I will find somebody to help me, or I will find somebody that can show me how to do it or even do it for me. Just because I don't know how to do this one thing, that has no bearing on my value, on my worth, or anything like that. So just kind of consider where you're going unconscious in your in your day-to-day, and where maybe your brain is telling you things that are not true. The beautiful thing is about the brain is it'll believe what you tell it, good, bad, or otherwise. So we need to start feeding ourselves more beautiful beliefs and adopting those. And I know you all have thoughts about yourself that aren't true and other people don't think about you. Even on your days where you're like, everything's awful and I hate everything, there's somebody that can read your label and be like, you are so smart. You are so crafty. You can do all of these things. We don't give ourselves enough credit. And because of the time, we'll save this conversation more for another week, but just start to pay attention about these thoughts that you're having over the next week and think, is that actually true? Or is that just a story picked up along the way? Have you ever like retold a story so many times you get to the point where you're like, I don't know if I made that part up or not. Like, I don't know if I rewrote that part of history. And then you're like, is that the way that it actually happened? Or did I kind of make that up and rewrite history? We do that all the time without realizing it. So we need to stop going unconscious when we're on autopilot. All right. So what I want to do, again, we'll continue that conversation next week, but I want to just wrap. We'll take a few more breaths together and I want to just do a little visualization. If you have a hard time visualizing, that's okay. I want you to tap into feelings. If it feels safe to do so, close your eyes. If you want to put your hands on your heart, you can, or wherever feels comfortable for you. If you want to turn off your camera, that's okay. Promise I'm not staring at you. And if I am, I'm just thinking about how pretty you are, so don't worry. Take a couple of deep breaths in through the nose. Let it all out. Do that again. In through the nose. All out through the mouth. All go. You can breathe however is comfortable for you now. If you want to keep doing deep breaths, that's great. But whatever feels good is fine. And I want you to remind yourself that you have not failed anywhere at anything. We can reframe if we see as failures as simply feedback. The things that didn't go the way you had hoped were not failures, just experiences that provided you with some information for the next step of your journey. So take a moment, look back at 2023 you, whoever she is, wherever she is, whatever stage she's in. I just want you to send her a lot of love. I know some of your journeys, and I know some of you have been through it in the last year. So just send that version of you a lot of love. And we can take a moment to thank her for bringing us to this point now. I want you to take just a moment and fast forward to December 31st, 2024, so the end of this year. Open your heart. Allow yourself to open your heart. Allow yourself to receive the love and the light that is to come in this year. Remind yourself that life is to be loved and lived, and you get to live the life you love. So it's New Year's Eve 2024. You've just had the best year of your life. What happened for it to be the best year of your life? Dream as big as you want, not putting any time limits on those dreams. You're looking back at 2024 with so much gratitude. What happened for you for 2024 be the best so far? What does that feel like for you? What does it look like? You are safe to dream as big as you want. You are supported to dream as big as you want. And whatever those dreams are, you have them for a reason because they are for you. They are for you, and you have the ability in this lifetime to bring them to fruition, whatever they are. A couple more deep breaths. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. We'll wrap here in just a minute. If anything came up for you, I'd encourage you to write that down. Sometimes we have trouble with an actual picture, but if there were feelings that came to you, write those down. There's nothing silly. None of this is crazy. If it came to you, it's for you. We need to give ourselves the permission to dream and to allow space for whatever those dreams are. And it's okay if your dream isn't to be the next female astronaut. Your dream can just be as simple as having a home and a life and a family that you love. If that's your dream, and that's beautiful. That's enough. But whatever the thing is, it's for you. And I know some of you, and I know some of your dreams, and I know how big and beautiful they are. And I just want you to remember that they're here for you for a reason. So lastly, if there's a certain feeling that came out of that, like, oh, I really want to feel, is it ease? Is it freedom? Do you want to feel secure? Do you want to feel safe? Do you want to feel fulfilled? Whatever those are, just make note of those. And we'll get deeper into visualizing next week. I have a hard time myself coming up with actual pictures, so I'm trying to tap into how do I want to feel? And the beautiful thing is, and we'll get into this more next week, whatever those feelings are, you can access them now. You don't have to wait until the end of the year. So we'll get into that more next week. So a little bit of homework. Let's pay attention to where we are going unconscious in our days when we find ourselves on autopilot and what thoughts we're telling ourselves, because we can check them at the door. They don't have to come with us. And also pay attention if you chose to set something down today in that old busted up JanSport from 2004, notice if it creeps back in and then tell it where to go. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Having a Mom Moment podcast. Please be sure to follow and rate if you love what you're hearing. And come follow me on socials at Having a Mom Moment on Instagram or on Facebook. I'd love to hear from you, so shoot me a message if there's something you particularly loved or something you'd like to hear about on a future episode. So you can message me on either platform or send me an email at havingamoment@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. In case no one has told you today, you are amazing, you are loved, and I am so proud of the beautiful human that you are. Take care.